Welcome
All right, well,
to Wrench Life. I mean, you probably keep finishing your text. I
that's
could do
fine.
the intro.
All right.
Oops. Welcome to Wrench Life with a Y. Because there's nothing as valuable as feeling good. Should check the mic levels, whatever. Yeah,
Testing.
This is episode 4. Oh. Which is, if you're keeping track, the 4th episode. We're going to take a step back. Last week we did our first mom, Mind Over Matter. Today we're going to switch gears into one of the other categories, which was food for thought, although this will touch a little bit on the global scale of diet and food in general, right? So at the Mom Podcast, we're going to kind of lay out some foundations of like a couple different psychological theories before we later on go into very specifics. Same thing with food. Before we go into very specifics, we have to kind of lay a groundwork, to go off of. Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, good.
All
So
right.
today we are actually going to talk about... Where is it? Oh, geez. Hold on.
Oh,
Blaze, eat
jeez.
some time up.
Well, I deadlifted a lot today. Everything hurts. No one really wants to listen to me. I don't know why I'm talking. Oh, good, he's back.
I could pause, but I could just leave that in there and make you sound... It actually doesn't... I don't think it makes you sound bad. I think it just makes me sound better. Not actually audibly sound better, just... Anyway, moving along. Today we're going to talk about this book. If you're on YouTube, you can see me holding up the book. If you're on the podcast form, you can hear my hands holding the book. This is
ASMR stuff
Michael...
right there.
What?
ASMR stuff. That's that stuff I keep telling you to do.
ASMR?
ASMR. You know the videos of people like where they do that and they have millions of views on YouTube and make a ton of money. So if this doesn't work out, use these mics for that.
Okay. So we're going to talk about The Omnivore's Dilemma, Michael Pollan's book. Fantastic book. Everyone should read this book. It's about the Omnivore's Dilemma. On the cover here we have some grapes, an egg. Looks like a big chunk of bone. Was like a femur, cow femur maybe?
Yeah, that's a shank.
A shank?
That's like a marrow bone.
Yeah, because bone marrow is good. And then there's a mushroom on there.
Mm-hmm.
So... hopefully some of you have actually heard of Michael Pollan. Maybe you've read some of Michael Pollan's books. They're fantastic. So today we're going to, I'll give you a little outline. We're going to go over the basic info and the background of Michael Pollan. We're going to outline the book. Then we're going to do our mindful moments. Then we're going to break down the 4 sections of the book. Then I'll touch on the follow-up book briefly. And then just a little bit of... Michael Pollan's advice. He's got this slogan. We've talked about it before, but we'll close with that. All right. You all right? You on, Blaze?
Sounds like a great outline. Good plan.
Yeah, I outlined it this morning.
Good stuff.
This one's a little easier because I've read this book like 3 times, so I didn't have. I just kind of like fact checked myself a little bit and double checked some stuff, so it wasn't as hard as the Freud one we're gonna get into later.
I've definitely opened that book 3 times.
Oh wow. Yeah, I read it.
I've read like a chapter or 2. I've been trying to.
Listen to it on audiobook, yeah.
Yeah, you gave me that.
Yeah, I like to read a book and then listen to it later. I feel like you absorb it a little bit differently.
Especially a book as dense as that.
It's not that dense.
Well, for me. For someone as stupid as I am.
I think one of the great things about this book is that it isn't that dense. Whatever.
Yeah, that one's an easier read, right? Doesn't he have one that's a little more...
That's the follow-up book
yeah,
to this we'll talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Defense of Food. The reason I think this book is so great is because it's not hard to read, and it's not advice at all. It's not like a diet book. It doesn't tell you really anything of what you should do. It just lays out kind of the story, as the title says, Omnivore's Dilemma, a natural history of 4 meals. Right?
Simple enough.
Right. So it kind of gives you, it'll basically help someone, like we talked about the ideology, philosophy thing. Y'all have your dietary ideologies. This book helps you look at the history of a plate of food to go from the ground to your plate. And it never doesn't mention anything about any diets or fads or anything like that. So you can look at it without like going into it being like if you didn't eat meat and the book says like well actually there's a bone on the cover. But if it had any indication that countered your particular food ideology, you'd be apprehensive to read it because people are scared of the opposing opinion because there's probably some truth in it. Whew, roasted. So, briefly on Michael Pollan, I obsessed about Michael Pollan. So I like at one point watched basically everything there was on YouTube with him in it, and I found that was really helpful for me because then when I was reading, I could hear him saying it because he actually writes very similar to the way he speaks. Not all writers are like that.
It's a really calm speaker. You can really take in a lot of information.
He's a great speaker.
It's great. When he was on Rogan, it was pretty awesome. It's just really...
Was he? No, he was... No,
wasn't he on? Yeah, he was on Rogan for the other book.
The other book, yeah. It's funny because when I kind of got into Rogan, I would like use Rogan as a way to find people, and I'd go down their wormhole. So he was kind of like... He kind of does what like I'm trying to do with like 3 particular realms. He does it with like the whole world because he's a maniac. And I wondered, I looked it up multiple times, like how has Michael Pollan never been on Rogan?
Yeah. Well, it just took a while. It had to be about psychedelics.
Yeah.
For Rogan to be like, oh, mushrooms.
Okay, so Pollan was born in 1955, so he's kind of old. He's this is according to the Wikipedia. He's an American author, journalist, activist, and the Louis K. Chan Art Lecturer and Professor of Practice Nonfiction at Harvard.
Ooh.
Yeah. He is also a professor of journalism at UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism. Right? A lot of people think he's a, quote, food writer. He always says, and I agree with what he says, is that is not accurate. Pollan says he writes about our connection to the natural world.
Fair.
And the more recent book kind of outlines that. And the older books that people don't know actually point that out. Pollan also taught a course at Berkeley called Edible Education. You can actually find it on YouTube. He did it for 2 semesters, and then other people did it in subsequent semesters. I've watched 3 of the semesters. The 2 he did, the 1 he didn't. That book is that semester is really based on this book. He brings in people that he talks about in the book.
Oh, really?
So, like, he's not actually teaching a lot of the seminars. So maybe there's 12 classes. He probably teaches, like, 7 of them, and he brings in people. Joel Salatin comes in and everything. There's one of those I'll link in the description. It's Edible Education 101, Food as Culture by Dr. Peter Sellers. This is a really great lecture. This guy's from theater. He's really animated, kind of flamboyant, you know. And he talks about food... He kind of talks about, like, if food had karma in it. About, being conscious of your food choices. And since he's, like, in theater. I was thinking theatrics and theater. Yeah. Since he's from theater and he's kind of flamboyant, he kind of exaggerates it and he makes it seem kind of romantic. And he's talking about how if you're eating organic strawberries, the migrant worker who gets paid little to nothing is suffering for her work, and the pesticides are affecting her and her children. And he's like, that sweetness you taste, that's suffering. He's like, you're tasting the pesticides that are causing her birth defects.
Wow.
And I like that he drives it home so hard because that is completely true. People think of food, they think of the cost of food in only dollar signs.
Yeah.
The cost of food is immense, and it's something that you should take into consideration before you start to articulate some sort of ideology.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about that with the suffering involved in meat eating versus not meat eating, and
there's no free lunch. There's no cruelty free. There's no
I mean, if you're just in the woods and you just pick something up, ate it, maybe.
Sure, you could argue something against that, but it wouldn't have much weight to stand.
I'm thinking that the context of that reference would be if you're buying lunch, like if you're going somewhere to get it, there's no cruelty free. Yeah, that's not the same. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will link to that video in the description. It's really great. I once made people listen to it. So whatever. So Pollan was born in the congested Long Island, and then he moved into a more, not rural, but a scenic part of Connecticut. I know this because I read about it in his books, but that plays a role in his view and everything. He got his BA at Bennington College in 1977.
Damn.
Yeah, he's got his MA in English from Columbia.
He's got a show on Netflix too, right?
Yeah, it's in the outline.
Oh, it is in the outline?
That's he's pretty accredited. Harvard. You went to Columbia. Like that's pretty legit.
Yeah, that's.
What's also funny is that
just that is pretty.
Thomas Sowell. This guy, he actually just this year released an updated version of Discrimination Disparities. He went to Harvard, and he said the greatest benefit of going to Harvard was never had to. I forget how he phrased it. Like, is never having to be impressed when someone else says I went to Harvard, because it's such like a pinnacle thing. I went to Harvard, so he's like, well, now I don't care if you went because I did too.
That's so good,
right? And that falls in the line of what they would call the theory of credentialism in America right now in colleges, but
that's another podcast.
Yeah. That's probably not really for this forum either. All right, so Pollan's books, he's written A Place of My Own in 1998, and that was about him building a small shed, so it was like an amateur architect. It was released under two different, like in main title and then like subline, but it's pretty cool. I never read that one because I didn't really care so much about the architecture, but I would imagine he goes into the psychology of a home, exactly what makes a home and all that stuff. And I know about the shed because in the later book, the psychedelics book, he's in that shed from that first book when he's having one of his experiences. His second book is called Second Nature. It's a gardener's education. He wrote that in 91. I've read most of that. I got caught up in the middle. That's a great book. It's about the same thing, psychology and sociology and the philosophy of the front yard and the garden, and how we have this nature is wild and we're constantly trying to control it. So it's got this really cool thing going on in there. The book after that is The Botany of Desire, 2001. That one's great. I've read that twice. Same thing. It's about plant coevolution. Goes over sweetness, beauty, intoxicant, staple. So he talks about apples, tulips, marijuana, potato. And each one of those plants has a history with humans that is so much more interesting than you could ever imagine. I had no idea apples were so freaking cool. Apples are insanely cool.
Is it in that? Maybe I'm mixing this up with someone else, but doesn't he argue that maybe the plants are changing humans as much as humans are changing plants? Where like we have such a symbiotic relationship that the corn actually shaped us almost, and it's reacting in a way that like. Makes us do different things to the corn that's beneficial for the corn.
The plant's super goal is to spread its seed. And most plants will use a way of a host animal to get the animal to spread the seed. Corn won. Yeah. Corn won. Corn and
soy really took over America.
And the plant's gonna mutate here and there, and there's certain things you could see, and people selectively breed, and that's technically a form of GMO. And then we took that and like ramped it into overdrive, and we think we won corn, but corn's looking at us going, nah, we won you.
You are corn.
Yes. Yes, we're going to talk about corn shortly. After The Botany of Desire, which is a great book, we got into this book right here. We're going to talk about the Omnivore's Dilemma, 2006. It was actually New York Times top 10 books of 2006. That's pretty prestigious. The follow-up book, In Defense of Food, An Eater's Manifesto. That's 2008. That was also a New York Times bestseller. That's the dense one. Then there's the Food Rules book we read from at the end of every podcast. That's just really straightforward. It's kind of just like...
It's Food Rules.
Food Rules is a great place to start if you think you're incapable of reading, because...
That's probably what I'm going to do when I get home.
Yeah, I bought that and read it in a sitting, and it's not... I can't read, so... After that, he wrote Cooked. I think you've read that one. A Natural History of Transformation. He wrote that in 2013. I
didn't read it. Oh. I pretend like I read stuff, and I have great ambitions of reading, but then I don't. I
wouldn't read into that too much.
Yeah.
Cooked is about the 4 cooking processes. Can you name them, Blaze?
The 4 cooking processes?
Yeah.
Like the different, what is it like? It's like...
It's more elemental than anything.
Yeah, it's like fire, water, air. Isn't it just the elements?
Essentially.
Yeah, fire, water, air.
Earth,
yeah.
Yeah, essentially. So you cook with direct flame.
Yeah.
Baking in enclosure, the air gets so hot it cooks it from internally. That's why you get all air pockets and everything. Boiling, cooking with water would be, that was a big one for people because it enabled them to take the unusable parts of the animal and make things like bone broth, which is one of the most nutrient-dense things you can get from the animal, which is great. And then fermentation is cooking with earth.
Oh, okay.
And then in that book, he argues that we're not the only animals that cook because squirrels and other animals will bury their food.
Ants and bees ferment things.
Oh, yeah.
There's like they build whole chambers that are like vented so they don't blow up. Like, it's so crazy how ants work.
Yeah, ants are like really
like leaf cutter ants, they take all the leaves and there's like a little chamber where they do fermentation and it's like vented up to the atmosphere. So you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We should get an ant on the show.
Yeah.
My aunt's going to be here in July, I think.
Yeah.
She's not an aunt, though. Also, Cooked. Some people might recognize Cooked because there's a 4-part Netflix series called Cooked. Pollan was also in, what was the documentary? Food Inc., I think. He was in Food Inc.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have been in King Corn, which is another great documentary.
That's the one where they get the plot of land and try and figure out how to make like an acre of corn.
Yeah. That's like the sub-narrative to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cooked was 2013, and then last year in 2018, he wrote the book over here, How to Change Your Mind, about the history of psychedelic research and the reemergence of psychedelic research. Some really good stuff there. So we're going to move on. I'm going to give you kind of like an outline of the general theme throughout the book. Then we'll take our moments break. Then we'll jump back into the 4 sections of the book, all right?
Great.
So the Omnivore's Dilemma, a natural history of 4 meals, all right? Basically, it's going to kind of give us an outline of what and why we're omnivores, And we'll talk about what every meal in this book has in common, because it's a history of 4 meals. And then I'll actually tell you what the 4 meals are. That's just in this little outline, right? So we're omnivores. Obviously, what does that mean?
You eat everything?
Basically.
Yeah.
Omnivores mean we eat a wide variety of food. The opposite of that would be a specialized eater, which you can imagine eats a specific or specialized diet.
Herbivore. Carnivore.
Generally, yeah, and it gets even more specific.
Oh.
Some animals, like he uses the example of koala bears and eucalyptus, I think it is. That they literally only eat that, period. Like, if it smells like that and looks like that, you eat it. Otherwise, you don't touch it.
Yeah.
In those species, their enzymes and their gut microbiome have all co-evolved to digest that very specific food source. It, like, literally can't work anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. We've evolved to have a diverse gut microbiome. That's why simplified diets generally are not good for you. Some people would argue that our omnivorous diet has made us who we are as a species, and it's undeniable that it played a role. I mean, if you could eat anything, you're going to eat basically everything. Mm-hmm. In some senses, this will increase your species survival rate because you're less at a risk of a food shortage, but you're also at a risk of, like, I don't know, poisoning yourself, perhaps. Eating something that makes you sick.
Or cooking out the poisons of things.
There's security in that, but there's also security in being a specialized eater because your food source is pretty much there. If we were early omnivores, evolving, and we ate something and it made you sick, or you tried to eat something that in fact wasn't even edible, what is that going to hopefully require you to do?
Not do that again?
Yes, exactly. You need a memory, right? And not only to remember it, you need the ability to think, and you also need the ability to share that information. Mm-hmm. The fact that we're so social possibly plays a big role in, I'm sorry, I just gotta, God damn it, I swear. Asked me about my fantasy draft yesterday. I used an obscure, I kind of overthought it and did some weird thing. So anyway, yeah. So the fact that we had to evolve to, be social and everything played a big role in possibly the development of our brain,
I don't remember who, somebody on Rogan talks about it where it's like our species, or the knowledge of our own like our collective knowledge of species. So like as a person, you just don't eat certain things, like just go up and eat poison ivy because someone 100,000 years ago probably did it, and it's like not so great.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like you've been told like your whole life that you shouldn't really mess with mushrooms, especially not wild ones. But there is something when you see a crazy mushroom in the wild, you're like,
That's pretty tasty.
It's like, nah. Well, maybe you, because you work in the kitchen. I see mushrooms. I'm like, what the hell is that? I would never try to eat that thing, you know? Nature has a way of letting you know those things. Like there's poisonous snakes, you could identify them because they look aggressive.
That and bitter things are generally poisonous.
Oh,
and, yeah. Women generally don't like bitter things because they're generally not.
Is that why they don't like me?
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, so like it's like a defense mechanism for their children. Like they don't want to eat bitter things because it's usually poisonous or not good.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I threw this little one-liner in here. You know, we share the great diet of play. You know, you get to play with it, right? And we share it with elite company like rats, opossums, raccoons, bears, chickens, pigs. There's actually a lot of them, a lot more than I thought, and there's actually a ton of omnivorous birds. Yeah. So, moving along, we're going to go on to the one thing that all meals, all food, and all life, for that matter, has in common. You want to take a guess?
Water? No?
Oh, that's a pretty good one. Well, even more so than water.
Air?
Sun.
Oh.
And at the basis of all food is photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
That's a tough one without my teeth in. It all comes from the sun. Can you think of something that doesn't?
Something in the very deep part of the ocean, but they still get sunlight somehow.
Nice. No, they don't.
They don't?
Well,
there's some stuff there's some like algae that exist in total like darkness, and that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. I nailed it, please. There's like those crazy little ecosystems in the deep ocean that live around the vents, the thermo. What's the term? Geothermal vents. Yeah, but I guess even then,
it's sort of light
related to the universe and whatever. But you know, the sun's a big deal. Like the sun's crazy. Have you ever looked at the sun? It's so bright.
It hurts. Well, we haven't in a while because Rochester.
No, it was sunny this morning. I swear it's always sunny at like 7:15 when the light shines right through my window on my face. Yeah, but the sun's crazy. Every society's known the sun is the source of everything, and I've actually went out, gave you little fun facts for the podcast. I'll give you a list of some notable sun gods. The Buddhists called the sun god Surah.
Sarah.
The Egyptian called it Ra. The sun god. The Egyptians, Ra. Like Amun Ra. The Greek god, you know the Greek god of the sun?
No.
Oh, come on. It's Apollo.
Really?
It doesn't make sense why a moon mission would be called Apollo anyway, but...
Good one, NASA.
Yeah.
Probably wiping enough funding.
The Romans called their Greek god Sol. The Mayans called it... All right. Kinichi-Aja?
Nailed it.
Kinichi? I think it's Kinichi-Ja. Kinichi-Aja. And the Hopi Indians called it Tawa.
Tawa.
So you could say...
How are you? Hey, how are you?
You could say that all life is solar powered, right? You could say that. Even our fossil fuels were technically solar powered.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Exactly. Pollan points this out, and it really drives home the fact that he writes about our link to nature and not just food specifically, right? Pollan also suggests in this book and in the subsequent book that there should be a caloric count for like sun calories or fossil fuel consumption used in the production of processing the food, as well as your caloric count. Basically thinking there's like a golden ratio, or there should be some ratio to aim for between the energy it takes to get the food to your plate and the energy it gives you. You know, there are foods that give you nothing, that are, super expensive to produce. They get shipped, they get flown across the world, blah, 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 whatever. That's one of those things we talked about, the cost of food.
Just for you to throw it out. Mold in your fridge.
Yeah. It's sad.
There's some great, I think it was like some stupid Facebook video where they showed like the life cycle of somebody picking a basket of strawberries. They pick, someone's picking the basket. It gets washed. It gets put into a container. It gets packaged. It gets labeled. It gets shipped. It gets put into inventory at a grocery store. It gets put on the shelf. Someone comes in, they come in and buy it. It gets scanned, it gets bought. They put it in their fridge. It rots, and then they throw it in the trash. And it's like, oh, and that's like food waste. And I've been a huge culprit of that lately, and I hate myself every time I do it, that I buy something just to end up throwing out, because I think about that whole process of how it got to my fridge and then into my trash can. But it's like a huge, there's some scary number, like we could end world hunger if we just didn't throw out all of our food every week.
France
in America
made a big push on that. Like,
kitchens aren't allowed to straight up illegal.
Food. Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Yeah. Well, they're all about food over there. That's where that's where cooking really.
I wish Americans cared for food more than just shoveling it into their face as fast as possible and making sure it's on the dollar menu.
Yeah.
That's one of those things, just to step back there. I said it the other day, the difference between capitalism and corporatism. You know, capitalism, it drives you to the point where we can get you all this food and it's accessible. Corporatism is when it goes too far and they're like, okay, it's like, we're just going to pick it before it's ripe and let it sit on the shelf. And then, you know, essentially 3/4 of it can go bad and not get purchased as long as we move that aspect of it. You know, like at a certain point, it goes too far.
Well, there's no seasons in grocery stores. I think that's a direct quote from one of the books. You should be eating with the seasons. There's no reason to eat a peach right now. It's not, that hasn't been grown anywhere near you. It's chemicals are used to.
I like the peach emoji.
It's a good one. That music video last night was sweet. I can't believe I'd never seen that before.
Oh my God! Yeah. Yeah, he mentions it was either that one or Cooked. He talks about how recipes used to call for spring eggs because the yolks are actually different based on the chicken's diet.
Yeah. There's a whole I think that was in a Chef's Table thing or some overproduced food show on Netflix. But there's restaurants that feed their chickens certain things to color their eggs a certain way to make their pasta look different. Like, it's pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, so in the Omnivore's Dilemma, pollen touches on everything, like food processing, farming, a little bit of the politics, literally everything.
Yeah.
His writing style in his books will jump between like the facts of the matter, the political aspects of the matter, the social implications of the matter, the psychology of eating, and like a little bit of philosophy, and like he kind of like goes through these different lenses, so to speak, and he never goes on one for too long. Like, it's never like he just goes into rambling into the politics of it to the point where you're like, all right, dude. Yeah. Like, it's just like,
it gets concise and to the point.
Yeah, like, so some of the things he'll touch on, like, he'll give specifics that are really important. Like, he narrows down the change in the American diet almost to a specific KFC ad. He breaks it down to the policy of Secretary of Agriculture Earl Butz. That was under Nixon. He said, get big or get out.
Earl Butz?
Earl Butz.
What a name for a Secretary of, what was it?
Agriculture.
Yeah.
So that's like the turn when monoculture farming kind of took over. He basically, pollen will seamlessly go between these different lenses in a way where it's just like, it feels like a conversation with someone that kind of knows what they're talking about. It seems like he switches between those modes in a way that holds your entertainment really well. I love his writing.
He's like an omnivore, but talking.
Yes.
Whatever the word,
like the book itself
that would be.
It's high resolution in the way he goes from the sunlight to the dirt to your dinner plate. But it's like kind of like medium to low resolution on the specifics. Like it's not made for you to go crazy about the specifics. It's about the meal.
Yeah.
But that, what we said earlier, that prompted his follow-up book, Cooked. And I'll touch on that in a little bit at the end, really. Because after that book, everyone's like, well, what should we do? What should we do? And he's like, I guess I'll write the book. Yeah, so the sections of the book are industrial, corn, pastoral, grass, personal, forest. Now, you might say to yourself, wait a minute. Didn't Dave say there was 4 sections in the book, and I just told you 3?
I can't count. But
I had that thought this morning, because the title actually says, A Natural History of 4 Meals. And I'm outlining it, and I'm like, all right, So let me just get the chapters right. Corn, grass, forest. I was like, wait, what? And I was like so confused for a second. I had to like kind of piece it back together. But basically, there's 4 sections. There's 4 meals. The middle section was supposed to be 1 meal, but it ended up getting split into 2 meals. Because organic, although it is a lot better than conventional, might not be what you think. Right? So the 4 meals in the book are a Western industrial diet, industrial organic, sustainably farmed, and then a hunter-gatherer homemade type thing. Right? So we're going to take a break here. We're going to go into our moments, mindful moments. You know, we practice mindfulness here. So we try to be mindful of our good moments and our bad moments, and to not put them out of sight, put them out of sight, out of mind. Don't do that. Think about it. Be happy for what you got. What do you got for me, Blaze, this week? Which button am I pressing on the magic board?
I've been watching a lot of anxious moments at work.
You've been
go with
watching
that.
it?
Yeah, I haven't had too many.
You ever had those anxious moments? The room is spinning. I love that song. It's like poetry.
It's like poetry. It's beautiful.
So what's going on at work?
Well, it's not the busiest restaurant, which is fine. I'm just used to a much busier, higher paced environment, and I don't think everybody else is. So when it hits the fan, people get a little freaked out, and it's been kind of funny for me to watch because ultimately, like, if you do everything right at the lowest level, when it gets to that higher point and everything gets crazy, kitchens are controlled chaos. So if you rely on your standards and practices, then when it gets busy, it's just the same thing but faster. Yeah, and that's how it should be. But it's not. Mistakes happen, and I think it's a new season and a different crew in there, so they're kind of working the kinks out. But I see people, orders coming in, and people start to freak out, and things aren't getting delegated as well as it should be. And I'm just like, man, that's not so bad. I'm used to, like, not to bash anybody. It's just like facts about busyness of restaurants. The restaurant I used to work at is 3 times the size that I work at now. So it's like we do all the covers.
Now, when you say size, is that like square footage, seating ability, like meals per menu on the menu?
Yes,
all those things.
Yes. So the restaurant is physically smaller, staffed smaller, or probably same size menu, because all restaurants should have a smaller menu. Any restaurant that has, like, they hand you a book, you should leave. They can't do that many things.
Yeah.
And it's just lower volume. Like, no one does what Good Luck does in town. There's no one that does that many people. It's absurd, yeah. And so that volume and speed and quality is just, like, unmatched. It's an adjustment.
What's the term that they use at the restaurant? Like caps? Tops? Like this? Like
covers.
Covers.
Do you know what that originates from?
No.
So in France, where fine dining or whatever, they used to have cloches, they're called.
Cloches?
Cloche. Yeah, so you pull, I think that's the term.
Couche? Like that
cloche.
fuzzy ball thing from the 90s?
No, cloche with an L. Couche with an L, I think. So you would pull that off, and that would be the covers. Each cover is a person at a table, so you bring the food out.
So let's just say people.
It doesn't sound as good. Covers sounds cool.
Especially
how many covers you do?
Well, also, Good Luck, you have the shared meals thing, so yours might not be as accurate to person as other restaurants.
Exactly, and that's another thing, is that makes Good Luck able to put out that much food. Is at a normal restaurant, like say Next Door, you go in, you order. The food is meant to be coursed out, so you come in and you order, and each person gets an entree, and a dessert or whatever, and you order the appetizer and an entree, and the kitchen gets the whole order for the whole table, and every person has to get their food at the same time, so you have to time everything. At Good Luck, it's different because it comes out. Yeah, it's like, all right, he wants a burger, he wants a chicken, we're going to share it, so they come out at different times. And people don't think about the logistics of that. So if you're with 5 people and somebody orders a well-done burger, that takes longer to cook than a medium burger. So you're waiting on that dude.
By how much? 4 minutes.
Good luck, you're looking at 10 minutes at least.
Because the thing's so big.
Yeah, so a well-done good luck burger takes at least 15 minutes to cook.
Wow.
If you're nice to it. If you're not nice to it, you smush it down, and like sometimes it has to happen. But generally, people that order well done aren't going to notice either way.
Yeah, of course not, because I'm not going to get into that.
But to be fair, it's.
I'd rather you had an Android than had your beef cooked well.
Yeah, it's not good.
Sorry, that's how mad it makes me.
Yeah, that with the ribeyes too. The ribeyes are 2 pounds and an inch thick, so those take at least an hour.
Damn.
And if anything over mid-rare is going to take you 40 minutes.
Wow.
So there's a restaurant synopsis there. You got any beautiful, anxious or angry moments?
I got nothing for angsty. I don't even have anything for angry. I just been like super busy or anything. I do have a beautiful moment. Like you're saying. We know that. We love that. It's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony Pastoral.
Oh, I actually have a good not angry, but a good, I can't call it a beautiful moment. But actually, yeah, I got a beautiful moment. There we go. I thought of one.
Mine is like, it's not really a beautiful moment, but it's something beautiful worth sharing. Yeah, so my beautiful moment isn't really a beautiful moment. It's more like a beautiful thing or whatever, which isn't really, I really want the moments to really be focused on like very specific moments in mindfulness, So this doesn't fit with that, but I'm going to try to be better with it. My beautiful thing is just that tonight's the 2-year anniversary of Ladies' Night at the skate park, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. I'll be there later.
It's a complex thing, and generally it's awesome. And it's just great bringing more people into the sport.
Yeah.
There's been a big turnover. Not a turnover. There's definitely been a change in ridership. I have a lot of girls coming to the skate park, which is really cool to see, that they're not scared of the environment and everything. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's pretty great.
It's been cool to, like, when I was hanging out at the park during the week more often, and there was just there's just girls there just having fun. Like, it's not like not stigmatized or weird. It's cool. Awesome.
Back in our day, if there was girls hanging out at the skate park, they were ramp tramps.
Yeah.
Now they're just girls. They're just shredders.
Yeah.
That's great. But I got nothing angry. What you said? You had something for me?
Well, so Friday our dishwasher quit, which in a new move I've never seen before. He came in, he clocked in, he went on time. He came in on time, clocked in, went downstairs, he grabbed his shoes. I think he was on the fence when he came in, like, if there's dishes, I'm just gonna leave. If there's stuff to do, I'm just gonna do it. So he saw the dish pit, he grabbed his shoes, he put them in a bag, and he walked out. I've never seen anybody show up on time to quit.
Wow. And
really cordial about it. And I was like, he's like, where's Tim going? And he's like, oh, he's talking to the manager. Yeah. Oh, she looks. Oh yeah. She's on the phone. Yeah, he quit. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
So the beautiful moment in that is, obviously.
Where's the beautiful moment in this?
Well, again, everyone's all freaking out, and I thought it was funny. Like, whatever. The beautiful moment in that is generally the front of the house doesn't help the back of the house. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people who do that are they're there to make the crazy amount of money you can make being a server or bartender, and then they leave. It's fine. So I was in the dish pit cleaning and picking up the slack of the person quitting, and they're like, oh, they were saying like, oh, what are we going to do, dishes now? And in my head, I'm thinking, what are they complaining, like they're going to help me? Like, no one's going to help me.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I kept that in, because lo and behold, one of the servers came back and they started organizing the dish pit like correctly, like putting it all in the right spot and helping me out. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Everyone's like really rallying together for this. Glad I didn't say anything mean. So
that makes you look good being the new guy jumping in the dish pit.
Yeah, I mean,
in the pit.
There's no way to avoid washing dishes. If anything, whenever a dishwasher would quit at Good Luck, I'd be like, somebody please let me go back there. It's so much easier than my normal job.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I'll do that all day. Somebody work pasta. I don't care. I'll wash dishes all week. So that's my beautiful moment.
Okay. Yeah, I've been so busy, it's been hard to have beautiful moments. All right, we're going to jump back in on the book, and I have a treat for you.
Oh.
There's this great passage in the first section of the book, which, if you remember, the sections were...
Which book? This book?
Yeah, this book. But you don't remember?
No, man, I hit my head.
Industrial, pastoral, forest. I'm not going to go with those. I like to outline the book in terms of what the meal was. But the first chapter is corn. It's like, we are corn. Everything is corn. That's basically how the book opens up. And I'm actually going to bring in some audio here of Pollen reading this passage. This is a great passage in the book. He reads it all the time in lectures about how everything is corn. And it's like,
oh, yeah.
I thought I would read it, but why not have Pollen himself read it? So I have it queued up here. So I'm going to jump right in. We're going to hear Michael Pollan talk about corn from the first chapter of his book.
McDonald's. And I'm going to read a brief passage about that first quest and where I ended up. And because this was the first big surprise of the book for me, and you probably know the punchline here, but I want to read you just a few paragraphs. When I started trying to follow the industrial food chain, the one that now feeds most of us most of the time and typically culminates either in a supermarket or a fast food meal, I expected that my investigations would lead me to a wide variety of places. And though my journeys did take me to a great many states and covered a great many miles, at the end of these food chains, which is to say, at the very beginning, I invariably found myself in almost exactly the same place, a farm field in the American Corn Belt. The great edifice of variety and choice that is an American supermarket turns out to rest on a remarkably narrow biological foundation comprised of a tiny group of plants that is dominated by a single species, Zea mays, the giant tropical grass known to most Americans as corn. Corn is what feeds the steer that becomes the steak. Corn feeds the chicken and the pig, the turkey and the lamb, the catfish and the tilapia, and increasingly even the salmon, a carnivore by nature that the fish farmers are re-engineering to tolerate corn. The eggs are made of corn. The milk and cheese and yogurt, which once came from dairy cows that grazed on grass, now typically come from Holsteins that spend their working lives mostly indoors, tethered to machines, eating corn. Head over to the processed foods and you find even more intricate manifestations of corn. A chicken nugget, for example, piles corn upon corn. What chicken it contains consists of corn, of course, but so do most of a nugget's other constituents, including the modified cornstarch that glues the thing together, the corn flour in the batter that coats it, and the corn oil in which it gets fried. Much less obviously, the leavenings and lecithin, the mono dye and triglycerides, the attractive golden coloring, and even the citric acid that keeps the nugget fresh can all be derived from corn. To wash down your chicken nugget with virtually any soft drink in the supermarket is to have some corn with your corn. Since the 1980s, virtually all the sodas and most of the fruit drinks sold in the supermarket have been sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. After water, corn sweetener is the principal ingredient. Grab a beer for your beverage instead, and you'd still be drinking corn in the form of alcohol fermented from glucose refined from corn. Read the ingredients on the label of any processed food, and provided you know the chemical names it travels under, corn is what you will find. For modified or unmodified starch, for glucose syrup and maltodextrin, for crystalline fructose and ascorbic acid, for lecithin and dextrose, lactic acid and lysine, for maltose and HFCS, for MSG and polyols, for the caramel color and xanthan gum, read corn. Corn is in the coffee whitener and cheese whiz, the frozen yogurt and TV dinner, the canned fruit and ketchup and candies, the soups and snacks and cake mixes, the frostings and gravies and frozen waffles, the syrups and hot sauces, the mayonnaise and mustard, the hot dogs and the bologna, the margarine and the shortening, the salad dressings and the relishes, and even the vitamins. And yes, it's even in the Twinkie too. There are some 45, now 47,000 items in the average American supermarket, and more than half of them now contain corn. This goes for the non-food items as well, everything from the toothpaste and cosmetics to the disposable diapers, trash bags, cleansers, charcoal briquettes, matches and batteries, right down to the shine on the cover of the magazine that catches your eye by the checkout, corn. Even in produce, on a day when there's ostensibly no corn for sale, you'll nevertheless find plenty of corn. In the vegetable wax that gives the cucumbers their sheen, in the pesticide responsible for the produce's perfection, even in the coating on the cardboard it was shipped in Indeed, the supermarket itself, the wallboard and joint compounds, the linoleum and fiberglass and adhesives out of which the building itself has been built, is in no small measure a manifestation of corn. And
yeah, that is freaking amazing, dude. You can tell he's read it a few times. His delivery is just like
it's
awesome.
So good.
Yeah, it's really just something. He actually goes on later in the book. He has a mass spectrometer. Because a colleague of his at Berkeley in what was that? Biology, chemistry, science, physics. There you go.
There you go.
They can actually carbon, like the isotope build. There's some sort of isotope profile in the carbon of corn that's trackable. Mm-hmm. So they actually did a bunch of tests, and it was like they could tell you how much a human being is made of corn based on how much corn you eat.
Wow.
Yeah, and they did what did they do? A couple of things like they tested a bunch of stuff. Like I think they did like a Big Mac was like something like 40% corn. Like the bun itself was like 40% corn. The French fries were like half corn.
Half corn.
Something else.
They're saturated in so much oil.
Yeah,
There's not much left in there. Basically, that's what you're doing when you make fries.
Something else in the menu was like 90% corn. It's crazy.
Was that the milkshake or something? Was crazy amount of corn?
Oh, it was soda. Soda is like 99% or 97% corn product.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so this section of the book is really long and complex because the processing of food is long and complex. He does praise the industrial.
I was about to say that because there's almost no waste. Right? It's almost like every bit of corn is used in some fashion. It's like
he praises the efficiency. Is what I was trying to say. He can't get any. He says in the book he can't get any corn syrup or corn processing company to let him in to see it. They won't let him in. They don't let journalists in, which is kind of suspect. But he went to a college somewhere in the Midwest, I think, where they have a corn syrup. They have a small operation that does the same thing for the purpose of research. So he does learn all about that. A lot of corn.
It's so scary that those ad gag laws where you can't, like, it's just like hidden behind a, like, legislation to prevent you from seeing where your food comes from.
Oh, yeah, it's super messed up.
Scary.
Let's see. Yeah. So from the corn, he'll go into monoculture farming. I'll give you a couple. I'm just going to kind of go through the overview and a couple of random facts I absorbed. For every 100 feet. No, I think it's for every 100 square feet of soil, 200 pounds of fertilizer is dumped on it.
Jeez.
I think that's what it was. 10 square feet, 100, something like that. Either way, it says it's double what is recommended to use because they just said they figure why not.
Yeah.
And the downstream effects of that is dramatic. And that's like my big insult. With people that think they're on higher moral plane because they don't eat meat, monoculture farming, quote, literally and physically, the downstream effects are terrible. Like really, really terrible. Not to mention the loss of habitat and all this other stuff. Ecological impacts is just massive.
Especially people who overgeneralization of people who don't eat meat. A lot of them don't eat vegetables either.
Yeah,
they're eating mostly corn.
True.
So you're really playing into this monocultural
corn's a
farming.
vegetable, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but they're eating corn products or soy products even, which are arguably just as bad or worse. It's like the over processing. I'm sure you'll get into that in here. But pollen just focused on corn, but it seems like they go back and forth between corn and soy. Yeah,
I think soy offers some stuff that corn can't, like protein. I use it for like fake proteins and stuff. Another good fact I picked up in this part. Basically, there was a discovery, I think in the early, something like 1910 or 1890, somewhere around that area, that they were leading up to this. Like, people trying to figure out what they could use for fertilizer, what it was, the early chemists, And then this guy, Fritz Haber, he was the one that discovered that it's NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, that those three things are all the plant really needs. Like, the soil can virtually be dead of all microbial life or minerals. You just need water, sunlight, and NPK, and you will get it to grow. And then he developed a process using readily available things to create this NPK for cost-effective, at a cost-effective. Geez, what am I saying? He created a cost-effective way to create this. But also NPK fertilizer. NPK is also utilized in making explosives, so it was like a dual purpose.
Yeah.
And you would think Fritz Haber would be like world renowned, and he actually, in fact, did win a Nobel Prize for that discovery. Mm-hmm. He's like basically the father of modern fertilizer, and which allowed agriculture to go expand to the scale it is now, and fed so many people. Right?
Didn't he also create Zyklon B or something?
Yeah, that's what it is. He invented Zyklon B, so no one remembers him because I think he.
Well, he was forced to make it.
It was him and someone else that made it. The other guy that made it took the fall for the most part, and he was executed after the war.
Well, because he invented Zyklon A, which has a smell to it.
Yeah.
Correct? And then whoever got a hold of him forced him to create Zyklon B, which was odorless.
Pesticide, Moving along, he brings up Earl Butz. We talked about him earlier, the Secretary of Agriculture.
A funny name.
He really throws that guy under the bus real hard. The KFC ad that he mentions that he says is the turning point in American eating is there's a KFC ad that said women's liberation on it, essentially saying, we got it covered for you, Mom.
Yeah.
Other things he mentioned was that these companies have been trying to find ways to sell you these processed products because they're easier, they have longer shelf life. Mm-hmm.
Anything that lasts in your shelf for a month, you shouldn't eat.
Yeah, moms used to not be into that stuff because they had pride in what they did. I'm not saying moms don't have pride in what they do now. It's just different. So along this process, trying to figure it out, they learned that if they had like just pour in the water cake mix, and you could do it. Moms, They tested it. Moms didn't like it. But if they made it so you cracked an egg into it, it gave you enough of the illusion that you're doing the cooking.
Huh.
So that's why you make it cake or brownies, it's like you crack an egg and you do like a tablespoon of oil or something.
Yeah.
That they like systematically did research to figure out what people were willing to do and how they could sell it to them.
Yeah.
And he paints it like almost like a conspiracy theory. And then later on when he gets into like FDA stuff, it sounds even more like a conspiracy theory. And finally he ends that chapter with him and his family eating a McDonald's meal in their car.
Yeah.
Might be a LeBaron, I'm not sure. But he said he makes this analogy. They could figure out how much corn is in the stuff through the research they did. So he's saying there are 3 meals of corn. They equate it to having a whole trunk full of corn.
Yeah.
It's a clever analogy. Yeah, so we just finished up with that trunk analogy. So, that first section of the book is long. It's great. It's pretty cool. I think he's as objective as you could possibly be about it. And then we move on to the next section. He says in this section how he didn't realize until getting into it that this had to be 2 separate meals, because if you read it, it's really mind-blowing in terms of what the public perception of organic is and what organic actually is. Mm-hmm. And I will say organic is almost certainly better than conventional. And there's a website, hold on, it's like they call it it's like the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15.
It's really expensive, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get that certification of organic, too.
Let's see.
Your farm has to be, like, void of any pesticides they deem unacceptable for something like 15 years or something like that.
So Produce Retailer is a website, and every year they release their Dirty Dozen and their Clean 15, which are essentially, if you're on a budget, there are a couple foods where the pesticides and herbicides in a non-organic way, they just need less. They're less likely to have a residue, so you can get away with buying them non-organic. It's not that big a deal. Then there's certain ones that they're so bad, like you absolutely should buy them organic. And those are usually plants that are particularly susceptible to pests, so they have to really go in on them. So the 2018 Dirty Dozen is, so this means you should avoid these.
As non-organics.
Yeah. All right, so Dirty Dozen are strawberries, spinach, nectarines, apples, grapes, peaches, cherries, pears, tomatoes, celery, potatoes, and sweet bell peppers, right?
Those first 2 are the ones that I was thinking too, like leafy greens that are like real susceptible to bugs or whatever. Potatoes are an interesting one, though.
Well, I'm sure it would depend on the potato and a lot of factors.
Yeah, there's a lot of kinds of potatoes.
And they do this every year, so it could be a matter of processing and what they're using and everything. So the Clean 15, these are the least, they have the least likelihood of
getting pests or needing
containing
more pesticide.
pesticide residue.
I see.
So it looks, at a glance, it looks like a lot of stuff that are resilient plants or ones that have a tough outer skin or something, So avocado, sweet corn, actually, that's weird. But, it's in that whole sheath,
Yeah.
Pineapples, cabbage, onions, sweet peas, papaya, asparagus, mangoes, eggplants, honeydew, kiwi, cantaloupe, cauliflower, and broccoli.
Broccoli gets a lot of little worms.
Well, I know
it kind of depends.
Broccoli are like cool weather plants. They're like fall and spring, so that alone might get rid of a lot of the pest issues.
Yeah.
Random tangent there. So Industrial Organic, he opens with this great passage where he says he could use his investigative journalist background to buy the appropriate eggs. Or I don't know if it's eggs or milk, but he's in Whole Foods. And he's like looking at the milk, and all the organic stuff have this like fake story, like, oh, they're raised in a stress-free environment, and they have access to 100 acres of land. And then the next milk is like, these are raised with cows of all of their kind in a limited stress environment. And he's like, well, do I want them to have stress-free or just limited stress? Should they have 100 acres, or should they be all with their own kind? And he's like, in the reality, a lot of it is just like a farm. But the whole point of what he's saying is that you go into a Whole Foods, and that's the example. It's like they use tones of brown and green, and they use matte finishes to give you that feel of like a farm and homeland. And they're like over the cases is like the red, like it's a barn. They really try to sell you like this agrarian pastoral thing, and it's not the case. It's industrial organic is still industrial.
Wegmans does that a lot. All of their organic Wegmans stuff has pictures of their organic farm they have, which really only exists
for the picture.
Well, for the picture, and they actually do supply next door. So for their one restaurant that they supply, because it's a pretty tiny farm. I don't know if you've ever been out there.
Yeah. Where is it?
It's on Canandaigua Lake.
Okay. It's
on some like probably super expensive plot of land, but. Yeah, it's just to sell you that idea of like, look how organic we are. And
look how organic we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, the analogy that Pollen uses is that it looks like industrial agriculture with one arm tied behind its back. Essentially, they're all the FDA regulations and the politics, they're going to use whatever they can use to maximize the profit of their product. Mm-hmm. So they will use whatever they can unless it explicitly says they can't. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Another big thing that struck me is interesting that I think it was 2 years. You can grow certified organic stuff on a farm that was non-organic 2 years ago.
Yeah,
which is
scary.
Yeah, we already know how much pesticide and herbicide they're dumping onto it, and it's like okay. Another interesting fact was there's 3 types of GMO. Mm-hmm. And 2 of the 3 can be organic. I'll tell you the 3, and then you can guess which are the 2. So there is selective breeding, which is the initial form. Well, actually, I guess there's 4 kinds. So the first GMO is just selective breeding, which is, you're just assisting nature by selectively breeding.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's organic.
This tomato looks great, yeah.
So the next 3 are, they can cross the genes from another plant into a different plant. Like they can put part of a carrot in a tomato or whatever,
Tobacco.
Yeah, tobacco. Then they can do things where they splice into different entire like kingdoms. Like they can put like they could take stuff from like a rabbit and put it in a tomato. Like they could do that's another one. And then the third version of genetic modification is where they expose a seed to radioactivity. And then they grow it, and they see what type of mutations they get. And if they like the mutation, they go, all right. And then they take it, and they'll either
That's so crazy.
Then take it, unlock the genome, or selectively breed it. So those are the 3. Which 2 do you think can be certified organic?
Well, the first one.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that I gave you 4 of the second 3. What
are the second 3?
So just tell me which one you think can't.
The radioactive one.
Wrong.
I was about to go back on it because I'm
Wrong.
assuming that once it's the...
You are fake news.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, but it's scary.
Yeah, you are allowed to splice from one plant into another plant, but not out of the into different like kingdom or phylum or whatever it is. Like, because obviously there can be organic Honeycrisp, and Honeycrisp is a GMO. It was made. It was genetically modified to have additional water within its cells. That's why it crunches so nice, because there's more water per cell. Fun fact. I'm just loaded with those today. Yeah, so organic is not exactly as, growing it in your backyard as you think. And in fact, if you were to grow it in your backyard, they can come test your soil and be like, nope, you're not certified organic, because you'll know what's in your soil.
Yeah.
So a couple other things. This is really great. I'm going to actually put this info in the bio for this. So he kind of criticized Whole Foods. He bought this asparagus. If you follow me on the internet, I was really upset. I bought my out-of-season asparagus, and I did it 3 times before I finally was like, stop buying out-of-season asparagus, Dave. It sucks.
There's no reason to have asparagus right now. It's very much out of season.
Except for I had asparagus today. I figured the white stuff might be a little bit different.
No,
so
I feel like I know the answer to that. Never mind.
Well, I'm sure in a greenhouse they could probably mimic seasons. I don't know. Anyway, they say it is in fact in season asparagus. They have it flown in from Argentina.
Yeah.
But this starts to intersect with Pollen's idea that the fossil fuel energy used to get to your plate is all of a sudden it's like, well, then just don't eat the asparagus. So he criticizes Whole Foods, says it's kind of deceptive, says he buys the asparagus, it sucks. He, that's the meal at the end. It's asparagus and maybe some farmed, I think it was some farmed organic salmon. No. It was, it's hilarious. It was Inuit caught salmon in Alaska that they then shipped to China to get processed and then shipped back to the United States to the distribution center, and then shipped to the local centers and then to the Whole Foods.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So he, rightfully, he should have insulted Whole Foods because what they're projecting and what it is not in accordance with each other, right?
Yeah.
So there's this great exchange between Pollen and Whole Foods that happens. The CEO, my chair is falling apart.
I got a chair at I'm going to bring you a chair. I got like a nice office chair at my dad's that I don't use.
I have a couple. So at the time, the CEO of Whole Foods, his name is Mike something. Mike, do you know this? You should know this.
Your bowling ball?
No. So I'm wrong. John McKay or Mackey. So basically, on the words that the dilemma comes out, people are like, "Yo, this makes Whole Foods look bad." CEO of Whole Foods says, "Michael, Mr. Pollen, you made me look kind of bad. Why don't you come down to our headquarters in Austin? Have you been to that Whole Foods in Austin?"
I think that's the one right by
House Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first Whole Foods.
Oh, really?
That's or at least the center of Whole Foods, from what I understand. I could be wrong. Someone fact check me. So they invite him there. They give him a $25 gift card for his asparagus. And they sit down and they have, I guess they have like a nice little lunch and they talk all about stuff and they, they agree about a lot of things and everything and it's all fine and dandy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then a couple days later, that guy, McKay, whatever, on Whole Foods website, he publishes an open letter to Michael Pollan, which goes on to really attack Pollan's journalism, saying, you shouldn't, why didn't you come talk to us? You could have done a better job, blah, 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 which is interesting because they just met, right? So
yeah.
So I'll actually, I'm going to link to Pollan's letter back, which from there you can find the first letter. And Pollan writes back thanks for the $25 gift card. It's written really well because he's smart, but he's like, thanks for the $25 gift card. It certainly covers the $6 the $6 that it cost for my disappointing asparagus, whatever. So he's outlining what happened, but in a way that's making them look kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's why would you criticize my journalism saying I didn't come interview you? I actually had interviewed multiple people when I did other articles for other publications because he does stuff for magazines and everything. And he just lays it down. He's like, I'd love to say that you are behind the food movement and I would love nothing more than to have my foot in my mouth, and be wrong. He's like, and I'll be waiting for the day that I am wrong, but the ball's in your court, essentially.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of lying,
Yeah, why should he have to come to the CEO or someone at Whole Foods when he's like, I just want to find out where the food in your store comes from? Like, obviously, if he went to, maybe not obvious, like, assuming he goes through those channels that Whole Foods want him to, he's gonna see what Whole Foods wants him to see.
And like I said in the beginning, organic is better than conventional most of the time, and some place like Whole Foods is probably better than your generic supermarket. We're just spoiled to have Wegmans here because Wegmans is like a Whole Foods anyway.
It's the best.
It is better. It's just there's a level of deception which is not okay. Right? Right.
Yeah. Not cool.
It's not cool, man.
It's not cool, man.
Yeah, so in that section, I thought it was pretty great. I actually stumbled upon those letters later. They're not in the book, obviously, because I have adapted the book. Like I said, I will link in the description to that letter so you could read it. I skimmed it today. The first letter Whole Foods wrote to him is insanely long. It's just they really, really tried to build up a firm argument and quantify all these things that they do and these percentages of this and that, and it did make them look good. And you read it and you're like, oh wow, they're doing a good job. And then Pollen's just drops the mic on him and it's like, oh shit.
Roasted.
Yeah, yeah. So then the second thing Pollen realizes is that the sustainable farm is really what people think organics are.
But it's not.
It's industrial.
Yeah.
Industrial organic. Although there are Wegmans does source some of their stuff locally because they have some local farms, and they're probably better than the local farms that say maybe Walmart buys their stuff from.
Well, so I wanted to say this through the podcast, but I think people just going to a farm and understanding where their food comes from is a really good way of underlining all of this stuff. When I worked at Good Luck, we sourced from a couple different farms, and one of the main farms was a farm called Firefly Farms, and I don't know if they're certified organic, but they certainly practice organic practices probably to a higher level than organic farms are required to. And we would go and just see what they did every day and saw where all of our produce came from. And when you do that, it makes it a whole lot harder to throw out your vegetables or whatever food, when you know exactly where it came from, especially in a restaurant environment where we're trying to, make ends meet by using every little bit of everything. In addition to just knowing where it came from, you can look at a cook and be like, remember when we were at the farm and you saw Sharon in the dirt picking that out? You're really just going to waste that? You're going to mess that up? It just kind of brings it all home.
You bring the food in the back door with a hand truck?
I usually just carried it.
I thought maybe you had to use some ramps to get it in.
No, it's almost ramp season. Ramp, do you know ramps, right?
Are like chives or something?
Yeah, they're like hipster garlic. That only comes around.
I like that.
Yeah, they're the best. They're so good. They only grow. It's one of those vegetables that no one's figured out how to grow at a commercial scale, at least not in a good way. So they only come around in spring. They're only foraged. And since they become much more mainstream and popular, people are foraging way more than they should, where you should leave some, and they're starting to become, which I think is what's going to happen, is they're going to become more rare, and people are going to be like, well, I'm not going to do ramps this year because everyone's overdoing it, and then we're going to have a couple of years of no ramps, and then it'll get popular again.
Just like BMX?
Yeah. It's the exact same words.
I will quote one of my favorite chefs, Blaise Rosati. If there's not garlic in it, it's not food.
Yeah, I said that the other day.
So the sustainable farm Pollen goes to is Polyface Farms, where I went this summer, which place is awesome. Joel Salatin, the owner of the farm, has revolutionized modern farming.
Our beef farm, their Good Luck's beef farm, that actually a bunch of restaurants in Rochester source from because of Headwater, does the same practices
that
you're about to talk about. It's really cool. We got to tour that one too.
I don't even want to get too far into it because it's just so freaking cool what they do.
Yeah.
He's Pollen in the book says, I think it's his first day on the farm because he basically gets to do, he volunteers to work on the farm for 2 weeks or something. And I think Polyface has this thing on their website now. It's like, you can't do what Michael Pollan did. You're not allowed to, like, because people kept wanting to do what Michael Pollan did and volunteer on the farm or whatever. Yeah. It's like, okay, whatever. So they're like, their website's really blunt. Everything's really blunt. They have an open borders, like, farm. Like, you can just go onto the farm anytime, 24 hours a day.
Just hang out.
And you could just, like, walk on and walk. They don't care. It's all good. Just don't mess with anything, you know, and respect the houses because they all live on the property, which is just incredible. But, yeah, the first day on the farm, Joel has Pollan lay face down in the grass. Because he asked him, he's like, what do you think? Like, what are you? And he's like, I'm a grass farmer. And he's laying down in the grass, and he's picking all the different strands. And he goes, this is that, this is this, blah, blah. And how basically the farm is designed to mimic nature. Mm-hmm. So the herds move, the birds follow the herd. So it's like they use modern technology like fiber optic electric fence to have the farm constantly moving around. Yeah. So it's not the plot of land that they have when they bought, they were told it was unfarmable. Mm-hmm. Their yield on their farm is greater percent per acre than industrial farms because it's constantly moving. Mm-hmm. So they're getting to do so much more with it. And they have a net soil gain every year on the farm. They are the way they are now farming makes the ground, the soil better every year than depleting it into the dead soil we'll have in monoculture farming in the the corn belt of America, the breadbasket. Yeah, used to be the breadbasket. Now it's the cornhole.
It was so cool when we went because they were tilling a new plot of land. And they started doing that by just letting the pigs roam free because they just they decimate everything. So like if you have like a bunch of brush and trees and stuff, pigs are just gonna knock it all over and
Pollan
till the land.
Not Pollan. Salatin goes on tours doing talks where one of the things he does, it's like a marketing thing. Like you want to clear a plot of land, well, give yourself 6 months to a year, run a hose down the middle, get 7 pigs. There's a pig per acre ratio. Let them do their thing, and then when they're done, you could sell the pig off to a butcher or something, and then
the
pig gets to do more of a pig thing than most pigs. Someone gets some really good bacon, and then you have cleared property to sell or to develop on. He also goes into the Middle East, or anywhere that, like America's actively trying to. The big companies, the corporatism of the companies are trying, like the GMO companies, and was Monsanto, they're Bayer now. They're going into other parts of the world and being like, oh, this is how you farm. You need to buy our seeds. You need to buy our equipment. And he tries to go around and to fight that by showing his version of farming.
Wait, did Monsanto change their name?
Yeah, they got bought out by Bayer.
Like the aspirin company? Mm-hmm. That's terrifying.
The German company Bayer that was owned by Nazis.
Oh.
Like NASA, shadow government. Yeah, Bayer owns. Yeah, it looked like a political move. Monsanto's name was getting drugged through the dirt, rightfully so, and so now they're Bayer Corp. So it kind of pushes sweeps the dust under the carpet. Yeah, it's not good. They just lost that crazy lawsuit to that guy, a groundskeeper at a high school or college. I think it was high school. Was using the Roundup. Everyone knows Roundup. Yeah, Roundup. That's what they use for all their stuff for corn and everything. Yeah. He was using Roundup on the fields, and he developed cancer. I forget which cancer it was, and it went to trial, and they won.
Wow! So they proved without a shadow of a doubt that the Roundup that he was using on the fields every day of his life gave him cancer.
Let me see. I'm trying to Google it real quick, see if I can find the guy's name. So the jury awarded this gentleman $289 million.
Which is like a drop in the bucket for Monsanto or Bayer Corp.
Hope this video doesn't.
Doug.
These freaking ads. The ads are getting me.
Gotta put ad blocker on. It's the best thing ever.
$289 million in damages. Dwayne Johnson. His name is Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock?
He had the same name as The Rock. The Rock beat Monsanto. Amazing. He got
Rock beat seed.
He got the argument was that the herbicide caused his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I've seen pictures of the guy. He looked pretty rough. Oof. Now there are more than 800 patients suing Monsanto right now, saying Roundup gave them cancer.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, great that they're getting
It's crazy.
Yeah, that it's.
And it's crazy that this is. Holy crap! Look at the guy's hand.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
That's scary. It's no good, man.
Oh, he had an accident in which he ended up being soaked with the product.
Oh.
Either way, but that's absolutely terrifying. He says he used it 20 to 30 times per year and then had 2 accidents where it got spilled on him. But yeah, it's terrifying because this is in everyone's garage. Like, everyone has Roundup. Yeah. It's really crazy. I watched the thing. Bayer is now trying to countersue, saying it wasn't clear enough, and they're saying that they've done all their own research and it's not true. But if you've looked into any of this stuff, like, they're paying massive amounts of money to scientists to come up with hey, do a study that finds that our cancer, our stuff doesn't cause cancer. The cancer doesn't cause. Make us look good.
Yeah.
How much money do you need? Essentially,
Well, that's a shame in that dude's probably going to spend the rest of his life and half the money he won in that lawsuit just fighting Monsanto again.
Yeah, but this is if you haven't seen, the only time I ever see normal TV is at the bar, and there is one of those have you blah 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 blah. There's a Monsanto lawsuit hotline now. So, but now it's Bayer.
Yeah. I hope that dude bought a Ferrari or something cool with all that money, so he can drive to his terrible lawsuit with his cancer. It's like,
yeah, right.
Please.
There's been some documentary. There's a documentary done about it. I can't remember what it was called. I watched it. It makes them look really, really bad. Whatever. Polyface Farms is really cool. Everything's movable. Everything's great. They're awesome. You should check it out. You should look them up. They have plenty of content on the web. Joel Salatin's been in. He was in King Corn. He might have been in Food Inc. as well. They go into. He also writes children's books. Like, he hates bureaucrats and all that crap. And he talks about how the restrictions from the USDA along with the FDA make it so hard for them to be organic and even hard for them to even sell their product. They slaughter their chickens in an open air facility. They use an assembly line program with 6 people. The chickens come in, they drop them in a thing, slit the throat, to the defleatherer. They go right down the line, and at the last step of the process, they wrap it and they hand it to the consumer. And like I said, everyone's allowed to go on the farm. You can go there on Sunday mornings when the chickens are getting done, and you can get it right there.
That's crazy.
But the FDA's it's open air, so there's germs in the air and all this stuff. You can't. They want any slaughtering facility to be all stainless steel, and that's super expensive.
I've been in one of those. Yeah. It's industrial to be inside of a commercial slaughterhouse, and you have to pay an FDA agent to be there to stamp all the cows and all the pork and everything.
Yeah, it's and they argue that that sort of regulation is caused by the big companies trying to keep the small farmer out of it. Yeah. The Polyfaces, they won't even ship food more than 100 miles away. They supply local restaurants. Anyone can come and get it, but they won't ship it. Pollen says when he first reached out to him, he wanted him to mail him a steak. Yeah. And he was just like, nah. He's like, nah, dude. He's like, you want it, you gotta come and get it.
And where are they again? They're in
Swope Valley, Virginia. In the Swope Valley. They're in Swope, which is in the Shenandoah.
I don't know.
Shenandoah Valley. It's outside of Charlottesville. It's not. It was about an hour, less than an hour from Monticello. That's where I went the following day. Highly recommend that. Moving along. Actually, when I was there, I got their bacon and all kinds of stuff. It was dope.
I had some of that. It's really good.
The last section of the book, which, what do you call it?
Forest? I remember this time.
Yeah, forest. Is basically hunter-gatherer. So in this section of the book, he brings in... The cultural element is he brings in people in particular domains to help teach him what they need to know. So he does... he forages for mushrooms. He gardens on his own, so he does gardening. He does some bread, and he hunts a pig, which is all pretty dope. First he does a little research on his own. He goes foraging for mushrooms, and his background, he wrote the Botany Desire and all that stuff. And he's like, he thought he found what he had, and he brought them home. I think he even cooked them, and then he was like,
not so good.
I don't know.
That's a scary thing.
Exactly.
I've worked with a lot of mushrooms, and I actually did forage some at My uncle's...
Well, if there's anything I learned in that book, it's like you don't tell people where you forage for mushrooms, so...
What? What do you mean?
Both in this book and in How to Change Your Mind when you forages for psilocybin mushrooms with Paul Stamets, it's like, they're like, there's no BS. Like, it's like a hunting spot, a fishing spot, mushroom spots. You don't tell people where you forage.
Yeah. It's like super secret spots.
I saw one of my customers at Old Pueblo the other day.
Yeah.
She hasn't come in a while. But she helped a little bit when we opened the park. And somehow we were talking about mushrooms. And I was like, I was saying hi, mountain bike in Seneca Park. And she's like, oh, I forage for mushrooms. And I was like, it's fine. I know how mushroom people are. I don't really eat mushrooms and I'm not going to do it. And she's like, yeah, well, I would never tell you or anyone my spot. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, man, you can make a lot of money around springtime when all the chanterelles and morels come up. You could, people buy those for...
It was one of those two he was looking for, and one of them has, there's a mimic one that looks just like it, but it's poisonous.
It's chanterelles. They look a lot like, I think it's lobster mushrooms, and those are... I don't think they'll kill you, but they will do some weird damage. Morels are a little easier. Those are pretty identifiable. The ones I found at my uncle's golf course were a chicken of the woods.
Yeah, those are crazy looking ones.
Yeah, they'd grow up the side of a tree, and they're really cool. They weren't the best ones, but our mushroom guy, Craig, I think Little Sprout Farms, I was like, hey, if I eat these, am I going to die? He's like, no, there's pretty much no lookalikes for those ones. You can go nuts on those. So it's pretty cool.
I'm looking at chanterelle. So the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin is the one that looks like a chanterelle. Oh, wow, and even chanterelles vary a little bit in their look.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and those aren't cheap. I think we would buy those for something like $20 a pound.
Oh!
They're not, and morels are even more.
Let's keep moving.
It's a long one.
Yeah, then he obviously gardens himself. The bread thing is really interesting. I didn't know so much about bread. He's talking about how these bakers have these starters, and it's like their prized possession. He said there's a spot in L.A. or San Francisco that's like a kennel for your starters. When you go on vacation, you can give them...
they'll feed your starter.
Yeah. He says a lot of them bring their starters on vacation with them and everything.
When I worked at the bakery, when we had our week off, everyone took a piece of the starter and fed it on their own, so there's less chance of losing it. So everyone took a little part, and I think they froze one just because it's so vital to have your starter going.
What exactly is a starter?
It's just... I don't actually know how to...
It's that particular strain of yeast or whatever.
Yeah, it's a naturally occurring yeast. So if you... I mean, I think most people just get their starter from someone else and go off of that. I don't know exactly how you start a starter, but... The
funny thing in this book is whenever Pollen was talking with his baker friend, he would always make sure he shook his hand twice, once on every time he can make any sort of skin contact, he's just trying to pick up the microbial life on his hand, hoping he could bring it back home with him.
That's so funny.
Because whatever,
Yeah, so it's just flour and water and letting it ferment and letting it grab the natural yeast in the air. It's like at the restaurant I work at now, we do naturally leavened pizza. So every day we feed the starter. We just give it more flour and water, and it does its thing. The other day it blew up because it's in a container with a lid on it, and I guess when the morning guy came in, it had literally exploded and sprayed the whole kitchen with starter.
Wow.
Because there's so much pressure and so much stuff in there. I've made pizza doughs that I mixed too warm, so they overworked, and it looked like it crawled out of the bin. The pizza dough I made crawled out of the bin, crawled up of another thing just because it grows so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts. Dough's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, when he makes his bread in that section of the book, he just does a starter and leaves it out on the windowsill and just lets it be what it would be.
Exactly.
Which is crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah. That's the thing with people who are celiac or gluten intolerant can generally eat sourdough bread because the way that the starter works in the fermentation process, it breaks down some of those proteins or whatever it is that celiacs can't ingest.
I've read that.
So, yeah, sourdough's great.
I bet. After the bread, he does the pig hunt, which I think is my favorite part of the book. Pollen is a vegetarian, and generally I think sometimes he might lean a little too far that way. I think he does.
He's still a vegetarian?
Yeah.
Oh.
he does talk about there's been a lot of criticisms of pollen, and I've read a lot of them, and most of them are like meh. I mean, if I would make anything, I think he downplays the value of animal products, but he did defend milk in one of the lectures, so that's fine. So in the pig hunt, he eats meat for the sake of the book, so he's not that like ideologically tied to it, so he's more about philosophy, right? That's the analogy we always use.
There you go.
So yeah, so him going in the pig hunt, he never hunted anything before, so he runs you through the whole thing in his head about like learning to shoot the gun and then learning how to, they go out in the hunt, and he's just like, I don't know if I can do this, blah, 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 and then I think they spot one or two pigs and they never even fire a shot. And so then he's like leaving and he's like, I was all mad. I showed up being like, I don't know if I could do it. And then I saw it and never had opportunity to shoot. So now I'm like, the pig won, like this primal like hunter comes out in him. And the next time he seems so hyper focused on the hunt and just like in the zone. And then they spot one and like he takes the shot and he gets it, but he says the other guy shoots the same pig at the same time, and then just like, oh yeah, perfect shot. But he says that he thinks the other guy actually killed it, and just like patted him on the shoulder, like, good job, Mr. Pollen, you got him, But then he takes a picture with the hog he shot, and to let any of you animal sensitive people know, there's a big hog issue in California. Yeah, the wild hogs bred with the domesticated pigs and made this like feral pig that's actually a major problem. Yeah. So hunting.
In a lot of places, it's a big problem, feral pigs. And like we said earlier, they decimate everything around them. They don't really care. They just...
Yeah, they're like juggernauts, those things. Yeah. Yeah, so then he gets the pig, gets a picture with the pig. He's all happy about the pig. Then they dress the pig, which is a funny term for dismembering it. Yeah. And then later, he reflects on it. And this is the great part, because he's looking at the picture of himself all happy with this poor dead animal, and he's like reflecting on how he got so in that like tunnel vision of the hunt, and like he's like I don't even know the person I was, and it's hard to even imagine it, like, because it's like I feel so look at me smiling with this dead animal. It's like I thought the philosophy and the psychology of all that was like really, really fascinating, and it came from out of nowhere. You never expected it in that book to go there.
Yeah It's especially awesome to be so introspective about something so powerful like that in a food book.
And then in the end, they eat a meal with him and his wife and his son and all the people that helped him, which I should have researched those names so I could have told you them. But once I got to the actual sections of the book, I stopped outlining. I just wrote a couple of words because I knew it so well. And then he segues from that into the closing about the importance of the sit-down meal, how important it is to sit down with your family, and how it's so, mom is just another word for culture, as I adopted that saying as well. Yeah. That's generally the Omnivore's Dilemma. It's a fantastic book. Everyone should read it.
I'm definitely going to pick it up when I get home. I'm actually going to read it now.
It's great, dude. And then I was going to go into roughly on the second book right here on the pile, In Defense of Food. But generally that just goes into the implications of eating. It's more data filled, but it's kind of dry. Like generally I like Kresser's writing, because this is like, it's just charts. Like this book is just information. Here's a chart to back it up. Here's a story that, an anecdotal story that backs it up too. That's how I like to work. The Omnivore's Dilemma was a really nice walk between the two. In Defense of Food, there wasn't really a whole narrative to it. So like Pollen as a writer, his background's in English, his degree's in English. That book should be more like this, but it's kind of not. But what I tell people is it'd be hard to read In Defense of Food had you not already read Omnivore's Dilemma. And the Omnivore's Dilemma, when you finish reading it, you know why everyone was asking him to write this book, In Defense of Food, because it goes through the implications. And even that one's not really telling you exactly what to eat as much to telling you what are the implications. What does the research say? What is, it goes into, they call it, what's the term he uses? Like nutritionism? I think he says nutritionism, which is like this thing where we keep taking one nutrient and putting it on a pedestal and then taking another one and being like, oh, you're the bad guy now. Like, oh, carbs are bad. Oh, sugar is bad. Oh, antioxidants are good. Oh, like that. He talks about that and the kind of like the philosophy and psychology of that. So that's pretty good. But Omnivore's Dilemma is the go-to to read. Absolutely.
Great book.
I'd read it again if I wasn't in the middle of 4 other books right now, and I don't have enough time to read ever. Biking season's coming, so I'll have plenty of time to read my audiobooks, listen to my audiobooks. Yeah.
Sweet. Great synopsis of the book.
Yeah, hopefully that's enough to keep you enticed and to help you to stay. Cause it's hard to stay motivated to read. I think laying a nice little foundation of what the book is like will keep people like, oh, I want to get to that part. Like I kind of know what's coming, and yeah, everyone should read it. If I ever had any consultation with someone, I'd be like, have you read that? Read it first, because it really gives you that idea of food in a global sense. Like people think it's like, oh, I want to have some Terrell. They just pick the Coke up and they think like the Coke just like what's like the Star Trek thing where it just like vaporized in place or whatever. Like the food just appears there and that's it. They don't know that like
the whole process behind it getting there.
There's one story in here where Pollen says he's at McDonald's with his son, and it was in I don't know what year, early 2000s, and they just reformulated their chicken nuggets. And they were he was like he asked he didn't eat meat, but his kid did, and he's like, oh, is it it tastes more like chicken? He said his kid looked at him all puzzled. I think his kid was maybe 11, and he goes, it's like, no, it tastes more like a nugget. Like he didn't actually know that like it was from a chicken, like an animal, you know, and that's what the food industry does, is they try to dissect the objectivity of what the food is. You know, they don't want you to know that it was an animal that bled, or it's a farm that is as far as the eye can see. They just want you to like see just that. You know, that's why they. Yeah, there's a lot of sketchy shit with that sketchy stuff with that. Yeah, so that'll be it here for today. There's longest one yet.
Great one though.
I thought this one would be shorter because the last outline was like 5 pages. This outline's only like 3 pages. Yeah.
But it's also stuff I know about, so I can interject a lot
maybe
more.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So, I actually wrote down a little closing outline just so cause I always get to the end and I'm so like, I've gone through the motions of the podcast. I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to do this? But yeah. This is the closing. This is Wrench Life with a Y. Yes, there's nothing as valuable as feeling good. Couple things to touch on before we go. I don't know if I mentioned it before, we could do an Ask Wrench thing. If you want to ask me a question about something, I could do some research about a specific thing, especially if sometimes the podcasts are shorter, help fill some time. Even if it's just very specific to a specific situation, like how can I get this into my diet if I don't want to do that, or something like that. And I'll say, well, easy answer, stop being a bitch. No, but if you got a question, feel free to comment it or email it. Either way, I'm here for you. Next thing, we need 100 subscribers on YouTube before we can get a custom URL. So we can't be youtube.com/wrenchlife until we have 100 subscribers. I think we have 4.
Sweet.
So if you're one of the 6 people, let's upgrade. If you're one of the 7 people that listen to this podcast, just subscribe to us on YouTube and help us get to that point, because that'll really help spread the message. Same thing, a review in iTunes gets us to the point where it'll show our review publicly. So I
looked it up the other day. It comes up if you search, like it'll autocorrect to Wrench Life. I don't know if that's just because of my phone, but
yeah, it'll say there hasn't been enough reviews to give a public review. I don't know, but if you give a shit about us and what we're doing, you know, even if you don't use YouTube, just log on and give us a subscribe to help us get there.
If you have a Gmail account, you just click on YouTube and then you have a YouTube account, so it's pretty easy.
Feel free to share this if you want to share it with anyone. Give us a review on iTunes will help us get a review, which will also pump the likelihood of other people trying to see it because of the way all the algorithms look. If you really, really care, you can go to wrenchlife.com/donate and you can donate to the podcast. I was going to do that, what's it called, Buy Me a Coffee. It's another one of those things that like creators use. It'll be like, it's like a button on the website. You click it and you can send up like $2 or $3. But you need a Stripe account to do it. So you have to make a processor, a credit card processor. So I was like, I'm not going to make a Buy Me a Coffee login and everything, and a Stripe login and everything, just because I think it'll make you, whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to buy us a coffee, you know I'm drinking that Peruvian.
I drank it. It's good stuff.
You can do that, wrenchlife.com/donate. donate. Also, the end goal for me is to get into health coaching and consultation. If you want some consultation, if you want to talk to me about your specifics, I want to get to the point where I can help people work individually toward goals. I'm very critical and analytical. You could tell me where you're at, and I'd love to look through that and think of logical steps and suggest them to you, so we can collectively come up with a step-by-step program to get to wrench your life a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's the end goal here. I like the podcast because it'll reach more people, but I want to work with specifics as well. I also spelled asparagus wrong.
Asparagus.
That's a tough one, dude. I'm horrible with spelling and words because I'm dyslexic and whatever. But
same. That's
it for today.
What's our Michael Pollan food rule for the day?
Oh yeah, we got to sign off with the food rule.
Can't skip that on the Michael Pollaniest
of
days.
This one's going to seem like we're obsessing with pollen now, but as always, we're going
to read a food rule.
What was the last one? Oh, the grandmother rule. That's a great rule.
I like that rule.
Oh, that's a good one. Rule number 3. Avoid food products containing ingredients that no ordinary human would keep in their pantry.
Done. Great.
And he suggests ethylated diglycerides, cellulose, xanthan gum.
I actually use xanthan gum. Not in my home kitchen.
Calcium
restaurants.
Propyronate, aluminum phosphate. Yeah.
There you go.
That's a great rule. Coming in a little hot there. You know how it is. This is Wrench Life. Get out there, turn that wrench a little bit. Feel a little better tomorrow than you felt like today. Wrench Life.
We should have a wrench on the table. We should get a good wrench.
There's nothing
big piping wrenches
as valuable as feeling good.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, cool, great.
Awesome, cool, great.